I find his lack of balance disturbing.
It's all that data, bro. With SLT mega deals, he's got double data for the next 2 months.
Making headlines on First at 9. Proving confidence. United National Party to bring a motion in Parliament tomorrow supporting Ranil Wickremesinghe as Prime Minister. UPF MPs to boycott session. Position challenged. Petition filed seeking 4 warrantos seeking to unseat UMP leader Ranil Wickremesinghe. Calling for rectification. Former CBS Governor Ajit Niwat Cabral says statement on current political climate by the US ambassador is unfair.
So it was, I think, unfair to mention that it was a sudden development. It was a development that was in the offing.
Enhancing regional trade. CBS Governor says lack of trust among countries in the South Asian region is a drawback to regional economies.
We tend to be very emotional, and even 70 years after independence in this region, our major countries still have a problem of doing serious business with each other.
No second chances. Sri Lanka Cricket CEO Ashley De Silva says that cricketer Dhananjaya will not be able to appeal his suspension over illegal bowling action.
බයික් එකක් ගත්තොත් ෆෝන් එකක්. ඔව් තෝරාගත් යමහා බයික් මාදිලි සඳහා රුපියල් 40000ක් දක්වා වටිනා ස්මාර්ට් ෆෝන් එකක් නොමිලේ. ඉක්මන් කරන්න නොවැම්බර් 30 දක්වා පමණයි. කොන්දේසි සහිතයි. අමතන්න 0117 696 696 AMW ඉතින් පමණයි.
A very good evening and welcome to First at 9, another Derana 24/7 Sri Lanka's news channel. I'm Katharina Chang. Now moving on to your top story tonight. The United National Party is to bring a motion in Parliament tomorrow claiming that Ranil Wickremesinghe has the utmost confidence of Parliament in order to execute duties as Prime Minister of Sri Lanka. Representatives of the UMP stated that they intend to pass this motion in a vote, but parliamentarians of the United People's Freedom Alliance says they will not attend tomorrow's session as well. A motion expressing confidence for UMP leader Ranil Wickremesinghe is expected to be taken up for debate tomorrow when Parliament convene at 1 p.m. as scheduled. The motion will be presented to Parliament by the Deputy Leader of the UMP, Sajith Premadasa. Accordingly, this motion has been included into tomorrow's agenda of the Parliament.
We will bring a motion in Parliament tomorrow to prove confidence in Wickremesinghe as Prime Minister. We have around 117 parliamentarians to support us. If there is a majority, which is more than 113, Ranil Wickremesinghe should be made the Prime Minister.
According to the current composition of Parliament, the United National Party has 103 parliamentary seats, the United People's Freedom Alliance has 99 members of Parliament, the Tamil National Alliance 14, and the Janatha Vimukthi Peramuna 6 parliamentary seats. Venerable Ratanathera and Sivashakti Anandan of the Tamil National Alliance have decided to remain independent in the House. The Tamil National Alliance has already announced that their fullest cooperation will be extended to re-establish a government led by the United National Front. In a letter to the President, they had requested the appointment of a member of the United National Front, which has a majority in Parliament, as the Prime Minister. The letter addressed to the President also mentions that the Tamil National Alliance is in support of the re-establishment of a government led by the leadership of the United National Front. Meanwhile, when another Derana inquired TNA parliamentarian M.A. Sumandaran on their support to Ranil Wickremesinghe during tomorrow's session, he responded that the decision will be taken at their party meeting tomorrow. However, the Janatha Vimukthi Peramuna has already declared that they will not support Ranil Wickremesinghe in Parliament.
We will not join the tug of war for premiership. Accordingly, we will not use our votes either supporting Ranil Wickremesinghe or to make him premier in tomorrow's Parliament.
Meanwhile, the United People's Freedom Alliance stressed that none of their members will join tomorrow's parliamentary session.
The Parliament is dissolved. The UNP has filed a petition in the Supreme Court regarding that. Therefore, until its ruling is given, nothing can be done. We don't accept a dissolved Parliament to exist. Therefore, we will not join it tomorrow.
A petition has been filed in Court of Appeal against leader of the UMP, Parliamentarian Ranil Wickremesinghe, being a member of Parliament. An organisation identifying themselves as Women for Justice sought from the Court of Appeal a quo warranto ruling preventing Ranil Wickremesinghe from continuing as a member of Parliament. A petition was filed with the Court of Appeal requesting the court to issue a writ of quo warranto preventing UMP leader Ranil Wickremesinghe from being a member of Parliament. Co-chairman of the organisation Women for Justice, Shamila Gunawala, in her petition cites that according to provisions of the Constitution, members of Parliament who engage in business by entering into contracts with state institutions are deemed disqualified from holding a position in Parliament. She reveals that she has information that the UMP leader is a shareholder of Lake House Group and that Lake House Printers and Publishers PSC, a subsidiary of the group, is engaged in the business of printing of cheque leaves for the state-owned Bank of Ceylon and People's Bank. The petitioner hence argues that by doing business by way of entering into contracts with Bank of Ceylon and People's Bank as a shareholder of Lake House, Ranil Wickremesinghe has become ineligible to hold a seat in Parliament. The petitioner further added that MP Dr. Rajda Senaratne is engaged in businesses and is therefore not fit to hold a position in Parliament. She states that as per constitutional provisions, under this condition, Wickremesinghe is not qualified to hold a seat as Member of Parliament and requested a quo warrant to be issued against the former Prime Minister, preventing him from continuing as a Member of Parliament. She further requested that until the court issues a final ruling, Ranil Wickremesinghe not be allowed to hold a seat in Parliament or be allowed to cast his franchise. Let us now take a look at other court stories in brief. While a motion has been filed before the Supreme Court against the President's request to expedite the verdict of the petitions against dissolution of the Parliament, the motion has been filed by Attorney-at-Law Aruna Lakasiri. Through his motion, he states that the request of the President to the Chief Justice through the Attorney General is illegal. Accordingly, Attorney Lakasiri has requested the Supreme Court to issue an independent judgment by holding a proper hearing of the case. Former Terrorist Investigation Division DIG Nalaka De Silva and Indian national Mercily Thomas has been ordered to be further remanded till December 19th. The suspects were placed in remand after being arrested over a plot to assassinate President Maithripala Sirisena and other VIPs. Details of the alleged plot to kill the president emerged following revelations made by activist Namal Kumara. Meanwhile, the petition filed by 120 MPs against Mahinda Rajapaksa, holding the post of Prime Minister and the appointment of Cabinet of Ministers, will be taken up once again at the Court of Appeal tomorrow. Until the examination of the petition is concluded, the injunction order prohibits the respondents from being able to function in their capacities. Chairman of the United National Party, Parliamentarian Kabir Hashim, insists that the party has no hidden agreement with the Tamil National Alliance. Addressing a public gathering in Ruanvala, the parliamentarian went on to respond to recent claims of a secretive pact between the UMP and the TNA.
Today they accuse us of having a deal with the Tamil National Alliance that we agreed to give them Elam, and that's the reason why they help us. As the chairman of the party, I assure you that the party has no deal with any other party. TNA said that they stand for the democracy of the country. What they told us was that they are against what the president did and they are with us for the supremacy of the parliament. There are no conditions between us other than that. Keep in mind that we will not make any mistake again. When we win the presidential election in 11 months, we will ensure the ground level power by dissolving the local authorities and holding an election.
At a
time when one of the most important rulings are going to be given in this country, parliamentarians Vimal Veeravansa, Gammampila and Vasudeva Nanakara continue to make statements in media briefings which influence the court ruling. Therefore, we hope to take measures against such parliamentarians over contempt of court and threatening courts. The Constitution says that it is the Parliament which has the complete control over the public funds, and there is no doubt about that. Only the President can use the money of the joint fund. There should be a government for a finance minister to do this. I got to know that they are spreading word that the President is able to handle public accounts during an emergency situation. It is not correct either. Some also say there is a possibility of taking loans from foreign countries. We accept the fact that the approval of the Parliament is not needed to take foreign loans, but how can you pay it back? They have to pay it from the joint fund, and for that there should be a finance minister as well as a government. That's where the issue is.
Former Central Bank Governor Ajit Niwadkabra says it is unfair to look at the country's present political situation as a sudden development and that it is a result of actions from the past. The former governor made this remark commenting on a statement by US Ambassador to Sri Lanka, Elena B. Teplitz, on the country's political situation in Kandy on Sunday. Teplitz said on Sunday that the United States government is concerned with the political instability brought about in the country that has led to an economic crisis. The former governor, addressing a media briefing in Colombo today, added that he is hopeful of a rectification of the statement from the United States, which is a friendly nation of Sri Lanka.
This difficult situation did not arise overnight. This situation arose over a period of nearly 4 years. So it was not a sudden development that happened overnight after the new US ambassador came into this country. It happened over a long period of time. And people had articulated that position on many occasions, but yet there were no steps taken. So it was, I think, unfair to mention that it was a sudden development. It was a development that was in the offing, and it was all a situation that had risen to that condition over a period of time. So I want to also make that comment. I hope that this comment will be seen by the US ambassador so that they could also take the necessary steps to correct their own version, because sometimes these comments that are made can also do tremendous damage to the country's forward march as well. I know the US is a friend, and friends must take due care to ensure that other friends, countries, economies are not damaged by comments. So if they do carry out that due diligence, they would notice that they have to go through that process, and they would then see that those comments were erroneous and then it needed certain changes to be made. And I hope they will be magnanimous enough and conscientious enough to understand that and make that comment.
The Government Medical Officers Association requests the President to release the interim report by the committee appointed to study the Sri Lanka-Singapore Free Trade Agreement. He said this addressing a media briefing held in Colombo today.
We hope that those who were engaged in this scam would be brought before the law. The President should take all measures necessary and possible against those who betrayed the country through this agreement. We saw former Minister Partli Champikaranawaka attempting to bring 5 ministerial secretaries before the Parliamentary Privileges Committee. We have an issue regarding this. Chandani Vijayawardena was the former secretary to the Ministry of International Trade, who was a prominent figure in signing EDCA and the Singapore FTA with Minister Malik Samaravikrama. Didn't MP Champikaranawaka remember that she too should be taken before the committee as well? This committee handed over an interim report to the President. When the GMOA got to know about it, we requested for a report from the Presidential Secretariat through the Right to Information Act. We haven't got a copy of that interim report until today. Therefore, we insist the President and his Secretary not to let that happen to this final report.
The United People's Freedom Alliance Kurunagala District Parliamentarian Anura Priyadashina Yapa says that the statements by UMP MPs that there are no financial allocations to run the country's economy in the next year are false. Parliamentarian Anura Priyadashina Yapa made this remark addressing a media briefing in Colombo today.
Yesterday, UNP MP Harsha De Silva said that Sri Lanka can't have international loans as we don't have a cabinet of ministers and a minister of finance. But Sri Lanka's parliament has passed a Special Provisions Act for the purpose. The act is number 42 of 1982 Development Finance Corporation of Ceylon Amendment Act. According to this act, we can go up to 1/4 of last year's approved amount for foreign loans. MP Harsha De Silva is an economist, but he makes these statements to threaten public officials, and we condemn those efforts.
Harvest 2018, organised by the Ministry of Agriculture with the intention of building a modern agriculture, was opened by President Maithripala Sirisena at BMICH this morning. Now, members from a number of local and foreign agriculture-related institutions participated at the exhibition. The key objective of the exhibition was to introduce modern technological methods that can be used for the development of agriculture sector by the Sri Lankan farmer community. Organisers added that they expect to create a larger demand for locally produced vegetables and fruits internationally. The exhibition, which was open today, will be held until Sunday the 16th. On other local news, Chairman of the Plantation Services Group, Roshan Rajadure, says the Planters Association has agreed a 20% increase for plantation workers. Addressing a media briefing in Colombo, the Plantation Services Group added that they will halt any kind of discussions with the plantation sector trade union, as trade unions have levelled death threats to the planters.
There was threats and there was some assaults on the workers who were working, and now the current situation has taken a very serious turn. I will show you a video of that. I think you all can understand the gravity of the situation.
In this video, you can see that we are being levelled death threats in Tamil. They also threaten our families and children. Therefore, we took a decision today to transact with them only via the Employees Federation of Ceylon hereafter. We, the CEOs or the Planters Association, will not participate in any meeting with them in the future. They can have trade unions, but they cannot make death threats on anyone. We give them the maximum which we can give. That is a 20% increase of their basic. Then the package goes up to 940 rupees from 805 rupees. That is an increase of 3,375 rupees per month.
With that, we cross over to short commercial break. Stay tuned for more local news.
Watching Sri Lanka's award-winning news channel, Derana 24/7.
Welcome back to the news. President Maithripala Sirisena has directed the relevant officials to take steps to provide essential commodities to consumers at reasonable prices during the festive season. The President has made this directive at a special meeting held at the Presidential Secretariat with the Secretaries of the Ministries of Finance and Trade and other officials. Now on to other local news. Governor of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka, Dr. Indrajit Kumaraswamy, says that the biggest drawback for economies in the South Indian region is the lack of trust over the years to carry out enhanced trading activities. Addressing the 30th anniversary convention of the Association of Professional Bankers in Sri Lanka last night, the governor said that even after 70 years of independence, the major countries in the region still have doubts in doing business with each other.
The South Asian region offers tremendous upside from greater regional congruence. And in my view, the biggest drawback has been the lack of trust in the region. And here we should learn lessons from East Asia. Japan, South Korea, China have troubled histories amongst themselves. But that has not prevented them from doing billions and billions of dollars of business. Whatever their historical differences and challenges in terms of the historical narrative each of them adheres to, does not stop them from doing an enormous amount of business. That has not been the case in South Asia. We tend to be very emotional. And even 70 years after independence in this region, our major countries still have a problem of doing serious business with each other. I think we can learn a great deal from the pragmatism of East and South, of East Asia in particular. So let me with that say that, there are tremendous prospects as far as the South Asian region is concerned. While Sri Lanka has aging challenge, the rest of the region has demographics very much in its favor. It's an enormous market. There is vibrant growth in the region, but there is much, much more that can be done if there is a greater focus on, really, as the title says, if you're able to harmonize policy towards achieving economic prosperity.
Meanwhile, Chairman of the National Agency for Private-Public Partnership at the Ministry of Finance, Thilan Vijayasinghe, lamenting on Sri Lanka's trade performances, asserts that if Sri Lanka is to plug itself into the global value chain, a trade as a percentage of GDP would be above 120%. He further noted that Sri Lanka is presently in need of a fundamental change in its development strategy. He expressed these views at the International Conference on Business Management in Colombo recently.
If you look at our regional peers, we have only 5 free trade agreements. Our trade as a percentage of GDP is going in the wrong direction. If we are to plug into global value chains, this should be going in the opposite direction. Trade as a percentage of GDP needs to be at least 120% to 130% of our GDP, but it has dropped from 80% to around 50%. It was 39%, export of goods and services was 39% of GDP in the year 2000. It's now down to 20%. If you look at 2017 statistics, it's below 20%. If you look at the years from 2000 to 2015, in the export basket of China, 76 new products were introduced, valued at $331 billion of exports. Thailand, 70 new products. Vietnam, 48. Philippines, 11. And Sri Lanka, only 7. New products were introduced into its export basket, producing around $100 million of exports. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is not a performance that we can be proud of. Sri Lanka needs now a fundamental change in its development strategy, from a debt-financed development strategy to exports and private sector-led FDI. We have limited policy options for fiscal consolidation. Our debt to GDP is 85%. I believe that it is time for economic leadership with conviction and purpose, with focus on micro-level planning and execution. I believe that our future is in services. We need to become an assertive nation that becomes relevant to India and China. We need to position Port City and the Hambantota initiative as truly Sri Lankan projects. And something that I'm fundamentally against is what I call misplaced patriotism. We are all patriots. So therefore, I believe that as patriots, we have to enhance our country's competitiveness. Very important point. We need to be mature in our diplomacy and negotiation. The success of a free trade agreement or a comprehensive economic partnership agreement, and in fact even a PPP, is contingent on good negotiation. We need to have a strategy of demonstrating that the Belt and Road Initiative of China is actually relevant to India from a logistics perspective. Sri Lanka needs to be cognizant of the fact that only 5% of total trade of the countries of India, Sri Lanka, Pakistan, Bhutan, and Nepal are intra-region. So 95% of South Asian countries do not trade among themselves. 95%. Only 5% are intra-regional trade. Now, can we not, as a nation, set ourselves a target that because of our logistics advantage, by improving our logistics performance index, that we will play a catalytic role in taking this intra-regional trade from only 5% to 40%, which is what ASEAN is about.
One of the top officials of the International Monetary Fund warned today that storm clouds were gathering over the global economy and that governments and central banks might not be well equipped to cope. IMF First Deputy Managing Director David Lipton said the fund had been urging governments to fix the roof during a sunny last 2 years for the world economy. He also warned that strains could leave policymakers under pressure and in uncharted waters, stating, quote, central banks would likely end up exploring ever more unconventional measures, but with their effectiveness uncertain, we ought to be concerned about the pertinency of monetary policy, unquote. Lipton highlighted that the biggest immediate risk, though, is the current trade war between the United States and China. The IMF estimates that if all of the threatened tariffs are put in place, as much as 0.75% of global GDP would be lost by 2020. Colombo shares edged further down as the All-Share Price Index declined to 6,026.26, down 7.23 index points, while the S&P SL 20 closed at 3,148.48 with a drop of 23.90 index points. Now, market turnover was 689 million rupees, with commercial banks topping the turnover list. Foreign investors, meanwhile, remain sellers for the second consecutive session with an outflow of 166 million rupees. With that, let's take a look at a brief report on market performance.
The secondary market continued to remain at an almost standstill. However, quoting was witnessed on mid-tenor maturities at higher levels amid sluggish investor sentiment ahead of primary bill and bond auctions to be held this week. Limited activity was witnessed on 6-month bill at 10% with considerable volumes. Market continued the negative sentiment for the second consecutive day, mainly led by price decline in Dialogue and Commercial Bank. Turnover and volumes improved compared to the previous day, while 29% of the turnover was derived from 5 crossings. Further, a net foreign outflow was witnessed amidst high foreign participation.
On international news, the Indian Supreme Court yesterday refused to entertain a petition challenging the Jammu and Kashmir Governor Satyapal Malik's recent decision to dissolve the State Assembly that was in suspended animation since June, when former Chief Justice Mehbooba Mufti resigned after BJP withdrew support. The governor dissolved the House earlier last month, setting the stage for fresh elections in the state alongside general elections scheduled in April or May next year. BJP leader Gangan Bhagat, who represented the RS Pura seat in the now dissolved assembly, challenged the government's decision. In his petition, the BJP leader called the governor's decision arbitrary and illegal and wanted the court to dismiss it. The Jammu and Kashmir governor had dissolved the state assembly, reports of extensive horse trading. He cited multiple reasons, including the impossibility of forming a stable government by coming together of political parties with opposing political ideologies. The petition against this dissolution was dismissed by a bench led by CJI Ranjan Gogoi with a short order, heard learned counsel for the petitioner and perused the relevant material with are not inclined to entertain the writ petition. The same is accordingly dismissed. On to other international news, British Prime Minister Theresa May was making the rounds of European leaders today, seeking support for changes to a Brexit deal in a last-ditch bid to save it after calling off a vote that she admitted was on course to lose. Less than 4 months until the United Kingdom is due to leave the European Union on March 29th, Brexit was plunged into chaos yesterday when May accepted that British lawmakers would not accept her deal to keep close ties after leaving the EU. Theresa May is meeting European leaders and EU officials today for talks aimed at rescuing her Brexit deal. According to a spokesperson, the chairman of European Union summits, Donald Tusk, is scheduled to meet British Prime Minister Theresa May at 9:30 p.m. local time. She is to meet Dutch Prime Minister Mark Rutte, German Chancellor Angela Merkel, and finish with a meeting with Tusk and European Commission President Jean-Claude Juncker. The UK Prime Minister has said she needs further assurances about the Northern Ireland border plan to get backing from MPs. European Commission President Jean-Claude Juncker said the EU would not renegotiate the deal, but there was a room for further clarifications. The Prime Minister is understood to be seeking legal guarantees that the UK will not be trapped in a Northern Ireland backstop plan indefinitely. That leaves a range of possible outcomes from a chaotic Brexit with no deal, which business say would cause economic crisis by cutting off their supply lines, to risking the wrath of pro-Brexit voters by calling the whole thing off. MPs have to give the go-ahead for May's deal if it is to come into effect when the UK leaves the EU on the 29th of March. Prime Minister Theresa May abruptly postponed a parliamentary vote on her Brexit deal yesterday, throwing Britain's plan to leave the European Union into chaos after admitting that she faced a rout. President Emmanuel Macron yesterday announced wage rises for the poorest workers and tax cuts for pensioners in further concessions meant to defuse weeks of violent protests that have challenged his authority. In his first national address following 2 weekends of France's worst unrest for years, Macron sought to restore calm and struck a humble tone after accusations that his governing style and economic policies were fracturing the country. but he refused to reinstate a wealth tax and to back down on his reform agenda, which he said would proceed in 2019 with overhauls of pensions, unemployment benefits and public expenditures. His response came 48 hours after protesters fought street battles with riot police, torching cars and looting shops at the fourth weekend of the protests for the so-called Yellow Vest movement, which started as a revolt against high fuel costs. In measures that are likely to cost billions to state coffers, Macron said people on the minimum wage would see their salaries rise by €100 a month in 2019 without extra cost to employers. Pensioners earning less than €2,000 will see this year's increase in social security taxes scrapped, Macron said, going back on a measure that had particularly hurt his popularity with older voters. We have sports news on the other side. Stay tuned.
You are watching Sri Lanka's premier news channel, Other Derana 24/7.
Chief Executive Officer of Sri Lanka Cricket Ashley De Silva says that spinner Darana cannot make an appeal to the ICC over the suspension imposed on him bowling in international cricket. However, the Sri Lanka Cricket CEO said that Darana can face another test after altering his bowling action according to the ICC regulations. He also said that Darana has to go through due training under the supervision of Sri Lanka Cricket prior to facing a retest. Darana was reported with a suspect bowling action during the first test against England in Galle at the recently concluded series. Darana underwent an assessment of his bowling on the 23rd of November and the suspension ruling came yesterday. On to women's cricket now. England left-arm spinner Kirsty Gordon is set for a layoff with a stress fracture in her lower back. Gordon was England's most successful bowler at last month's Women's World 2020, taking 8 wickets as they finished runners-up. The 21-year-old is a doubt for their spring tour of India and Sri Lanka, for which dates have not been finalised. However, England coach Mark Robinson said, quote, "Hopefully the timeout allows her to come back fitter and stronger," unquote. Let's now take a look at your city-by-city forecast. And that's it for Mother Derana first at 9:04 tonight. But before we leave you, we'd like to take you to Ardunuyella in Passara. The water source of the 30-meter high fall begins at the Namanukula mountain range. According to folklore, King Valagamba took refuge from South Indian invaders inside a cave found near the falls. You have enjoyed the beauty of the falls. Good night.
Bringing you the news and information 24 hours a day. This is Sri Lanka's premier news channel, Other Derana 24/7.